Hello, today let's imagine being a chef. With each dish you prepare, you notice you require the same steps every time. Wouldn't it be great to have a magic tool that does the repetitive tasks for you? Today, we're going to learn how these magical tools, in programming terms functions, can make our coding life easier and our code more efficient. But first, a quick recap. Last week, we learned that sets are unordered collections of unique elements, making them perfect for removing duplicates and performing operations like union, intersection, and difference. Sets help us manage data efficiently, especially when dealing with comparisons and collections of unique items. Let's dive in. Functions are one of the fundamentals building blocks in programming. You can think of a function as a reusable piece of code that performs a specific task. Functions help us organize our code, making it more readable and avoid repetition. Now let's get back to the beginning. Do you remember the first time we used Hello World? Let's do something similar to dive into functions. Defining a function in Python is simple. We start with the def keyword, followed by the function name, greet, and a pair of parentheses. Inside these parentheses, we can define parameters, but for now, we'll keep it simple and start without them. After that, we write the code block that forms the body of the function. In our case, we'll print Hello World to the screen. It's pretty easy, right? You have just created your first function. But now you might be asking, how do I actually use this? To use or call a function, all you need to do is write the name of the function followed by parentheses. To make our functions more versatile, we can introduce parameters. Think of parameters as placeholder for the data that our function will process. These are defined when you write the function, and they act as blanks that will be filled later. When you actually call the function, you provide the specific values for those parameters, which are known as arguments. So parameters are what you define inside the function, and arguments are what you pass into the function when you use it. For example, we can modify our greet function to accept a name as a parameter. Then we call the function and pass Alice as an argument. It will print Hello Alice. This small change drastically increases the function's usability, allowing us to greet anyone by name, instead of just printing Hello World every time. Let's see it in action. Some functions don't just perform a task, they can also return a result to be used elsewhere in our code. This is where the return statement comes into play. By using return, a function can send back a value to wherever it was called. This is extremely powerful because it lets us store and reuse the output of a function. Let's create a simple function that adds two numbers together and returns the result. We'll call it add, and it will take two parameters, a and b. Inside the function, we'll calculate the sum of a and b and then return that sum using the return statement. When we call the add function with two arguments, say 5 and 3, it will return the value 8, which we can store or print out. Alright, let's dive into a practical example and code it together. We'll build a guest invite system where each guest can bring two additional people. We need to make sure that the inputs for the guest name and +1s aren't left empty, and we'll clean up repetitive code using a function. Let's start by asking for the guest name. We want to ensure that no extra spaces are included, so we'll use the strip method as we ask for input. By using strip, we remove any leading or trailing spaces the user might enter by mistake. Now, let's add a check to ensure the guest's name isn't empty. We will check the length of the string, and if it's 0, we'll print an error message. Now, let's move on to the first +1. We'll follow the same steps. Ask for input, use strip to remove extra spaces, and check if the input is empty. And we'll do the same for the second +1. As you can see, we're repeating the same process for the guest name and both +1s, removing spaces and checking if the input is empty. This repetition makes the code harder to maintain. If we wanted to add more fields, we'd have to write the same code again and again. To clean this up, let's create a function to handle the input validation for us. This function will ask for input, strip spaces and check if the input is empty, all in one place. Here, validate input takes a prompt as an argument, asks the user for input, Strips any extra spaces and checks if the input is empty. If it's empty, the function will keep asking for valid input until the user enters something. Now let's use this function to handle the guest's name input. We'll call validateInput instead of manually writing the validation ourselves. This does everything we did earlier, but now it's all in one function. Let's do the same for the 2 plus 1s. Now our code is much cleaner, and we've removed the repetition. Finally, let's print the guests and their plus 1s. Now when we run the program, it will prompt the user for the guest name and the names of their plus 1s. If any field is left blank, the function will keep asking until the user provides valid input. By using a function, we've made our code cleaner and easier to maintain. Try writing the messy version first, and then refactor it using the validateInput function just like we did here. You'll see how functions can help you avoid repeating code. Now that we've covered the essentials of functions, it's time for a quick quiz to see how well you've grasped the concepts. Ready? Let's go! How do you create a function in Python? What are parameters in a function? What are arguments in a function? How do you return a value from a function? How do you call a function in Python? That wraps up our journey into functions in Python. Today, we've explored what functions are, how to define them, and why they're essential for writing clean, efficient, and reusable code. We've also seen how parameters and return values give functions flexibility and power, allowing us to tailor them for specific tasks. Now it's your turn. Try creating your own functions, play around with parameters, and see how they can enhance your projects. And with that, all the basic Python concepts are now yours. It's been a privilege to guide you through this journey into Python 101. But don't worry, next episode we'll be working on a project you can proudly show off to demonstrate your skills. And stay with us, because even though we've wrapped up this chapter, there's so much more ahead. We'll dive into local programming environments, explore Git and GitHub for storing and sharing code online, and tackle more advanced Python topics. So don't miss out. Let me take you on this exciting journey. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts or questions in the comments below. Happy coding, and I'll see you in the next dimension.